welcome to another edition of Debatable here on GodIsGeek.com. My name is Colm, and this week we're deciding whether the vowel at the beginning of eSports is really needed.
For the past month, I've spent a considerable amount of time in Brazil via my television. Even if you're not the biggest fan of football, I'm sure you heard all about Uruguay's Luis Suarez sinking his teeth into Italy defender Chiellini, Holland's demolition of Spain on the opening match of that group, and Germany's utter dominance of host nation Brazil in a result that had the world wondering if the apocalypse was imminent. Football is popular, if you didn't know. Quite a lot of people play it across this globe we call home, and the World Cup was great. But it's over for now, and we will return again in 4 years' time. But as one large sporting event finishes, one begins. Back in August 2011 at Gamescom in Cologne, Germany, Dota 2 got its first public showing at the International, a tournament hosted by Valve in which 16 teams competed in the aforementioned MOBA. $1.6 million was up for grabs, including a grand prize of $1 million to the winning team. Year on year, the tournament has grown, with the International 3 upping the prize money quite considerably. The International 4 finishes today on July 21st in Seattle, Washington, and my, how this tournament has grown. And here's where I kind of break the fourth wall a little bit, because at time of recording, Friday the 18th of July, right before the action kicks off at 4:15, the prize pool is sitting at a total of $10,846,840, making it the largest amount of money on offer in any esports tournament in history. What was the largest before that? The International 3. Fans of the competition and the game can contribute to the winnings by purchasing a compendium, an interactive booklet that will give you in-game rewards for watching matches, making predictions, and things of that nature. VV, Newbie, Evil Geniuses, Team DK, Cloud9, Navi, IG, and LGD all got through the playoff stages and made their way to the main event to do battle in front of thousands watching live in person and millions watching around the world. But it's not a sport, so who gives a shit, right? Along with Dota 2, League of Legends is also big business. Prior to this year's International, last year's LoL World Championship was the second biggest tournament in esports in terms of winnings. The only thing that toppled it was the International 2013. Riot Games' multiplayer online battle arena efforts should not be disregarded because of Valve's recent dominance in the market. As of January 2014, League was being played by 67 million people per month. But I bet you all those cunts go to Star Trek conventions too. Nerds.
Do you have any statistics on how many of those people also go to Star Trek conventions?
I would guess there's actually a fair amount of overlap. Actually, that's it.
They're too young for Star Trek.
There's strategy involved. You have to physically be able to do it. They're competing. Listen, is it a sport or not? I believe it's a sport. They get sports visas to enter the country.
That's not a sport.
That's not a
sport. That's not a sport.
It's not a real
I want to
sport.
talk about the 20 million people who are watching the damn thing.
And the money
they
that
gotta
they're
be
making.
crazier than the
They're paying
ones
big money to watch it.
I think what Inspector Clouseau is trying to say is that he doesn't think League of Legends can be considered a sport, as I suppose Dota 2 can, StarCraft can, Call of Duty can't, etc. Esports has struggled with this in the short time that the term has become more known and competitive gaming become more common. Its roots date back to 1972, when students at Stanford University in the States battled it out in one of the world's first ever video games, Space War, all for a year's subscription to Rolling Stone magazine. Walter Day tapped into the competitive nature of the video game playing public in the 80s with the creation of Twin Galaxies, an organisation that kept track of high scores and world records, as seen in the Sublime King of Kong. We then saw Games Master, the Nintendo World Championships, and multiple other avenues for people to compete against each other throughout the 90s, but nothing like what we see today. However, what holds people back from dropping an E and accepting Jim White talk about Daniel Dendy is shooting in the same breath as Lionel Messi on Sky Sports News? That video you saw with all those old fuckers in it, that was from a program called Real Sports, which is produced by HBO. As you can see, these people don't consider the League of Legends players to be athletes, nor do they think that League of Legends itself is a sport. The Dictionary.com definition of sport is as follows: An athletic activity requiring skill or physical prowess and often of a competitive nature, as racing, baseball, tennis, golf, bowling, wrestling, boxing, hunting, fishing, etc. To go even further, the second definition is thus: a particular form of this, especially in the out of doors. Sorry, Phil the Power Taylor, but it appears those 16 world titles were for naught. Like eSports, darts has seen a similar growth since the early 2000s. When Sky Sports established the PDC, their own darting organisation, in competition with BBC's BDO, the likes of Phil Taylor became a household name. Once Raymond van Barneveld made the jump from the BDO to the PDC in 2006 to partake in classics with the Power, this pub pastime became prime-time viewing on Rupert Murdoch's satellite broadcasting company's premier sports channel. A considerable number of these men couldn't outrun Usain Bolt, but darts is a sport, right? Even though it takes place indoors and doesn't contain much activity that many would regard as strenuous in an athletic capacity, darts is unquestionably a sport. So why is it so hard for the general public to accept teams like Team DK as sports stars? A lot of it is down to the fact that video games is only beginning to break into the mainstream, not to mind competitive gaming. In an interview with MCV in January 2014, MLG's Adam Apicella said that 2013 was a record year for North American esports organisation MLG, with viewership up 262% on 2012. Yet, you ask the average person on the street what MLG is, and they'll ask you if it's an STD. The same can be said for the handles that players go by. Fatality, Hungrybox and Luffy are all names of professional gamers, but your old fella would probably think you're talking about Teletubbies rather than athletes. In the case of Fatality, a really angry Teletubby. EVO took place from the 11th to the 13th of July and was a prime example of why people still include a vowel as a prefix to sport. The general public don't understand what they're watching. Fighting games are a much more digestible spectacle than a MOBA for the commoner, but yet when commentators are rattling off words that the viewers interpret as a foreign language, they'll lose interest and move on. Valve are taking strides to get around this hurdle though, while not alienating the built-in fanbase, because that's so important. As well as the regular Twitch streams that people can enjoy where commentators won't dumb down their announcing for the uninitiated, the International 4 has seen the first Dota newcomers broadcast. This is where the commentary team do dumb down the action for people that are eager to get into Dota 2 but have no idea what the fuck is going on. A genius move, because you can't alienate the millions of people that have been lapping up everything Defense of the Ancients with the past number of years. Within the next 10 years, I'm almost certain there will be at least one channel dedicated to esports on satellite TV across the UK. Will we ever see League of Legends breaking news interrupt transfer deadline day coverage? Maybe not, but it's difficult to say. As we know it today, esports is in its infancy and despite the large viewing numbers, has a long way to go before it's considered a bona fide sport by the masses rather than just a group of teens tapping away on keyboards. However, sport, an athletic activity requiring skill or physical prowess and often of a competitive nature, as racing, baseball, tennis, golf, bowling, wrestling, boxing, hunting, fishing, etc. Skill? Check. Physical prowess? To a certain degree, sort of. Competitive nature? Most definitely.
Is Dota 2 a sport? Traditionally speaking, we would say not. We see something more physical as a sport, like 22 people running after a ball on a pitch, or a number of men or women in different lanes going back and forth in water. We see that as a sport. Or a number of men and women in different lanes jumping over hurdles. We see that as a sport. We don't see Dota 2 as a sport, because up against those, what are you doing? You're just clicking a mouse or tapping a keyboard or something. That's not that physical. Yet darts is a sport, as I already argued. By definition, Dota 2 has some characteristics that does warrant it being called a sport. I'll leave it up to you to decide. Last week I looked at Mighty Number 9 and how KG Inafune and Concept, after making $4 million from Kickstarter and PayPal donations, pledges, whatever the correct term is, after the Kickstarter had ended. They're now looking for $200,000 US for Japanese and English voice acting. And I asked you what you thought of it, and you have let me know. Starting off with Toad Production Inc. First of all, if you run a production company of toads, bravo. I know it's difficult to control a massive amount of amphibians. But Toad Production Inc., you said that the charm might be missing from Mighty Number 9 with a fully voiced game. Maybe that would be the case. Personally, I'm one of these people that thinks, like say I know it's kind of slightly different because you're dealing with a large RPG where there would be a lot of voice acting. Say Link. If Link speaks, why would the charm be missing? I don't think so. And I kind of think the same here with if Beck was speaking, who is the lead character in Mighty Number 9. I don't think the charm would be missing per se. But then maybe long-time Mega Man fans might think differently. Makoto03 also commented and said that they don't really believe in this Kickstarter model of paying for something before they actually get it. And they even went on to say that they don't pre-order stuff unless there's a pre-order incentive that's the publishers promise you won't be able to get in the future. Now, that's not always the case. Most of the time, publishers will say, yeah, pre-order the game and you'll get this thing that nobody else will get and you will be fucking special. But take Alien Isolation, which is the most recent example, where they're bringing back the entire cast of Alien, well, the majority of the cast of Alien, and making some DLC as a pre-order incentive. But then when there was a lot of hoopla from fans because of this, they actually said, yeah, we're going to be releasing it in a month or two, so don't worry about that if you don't want to pre-order. And we do see that a lot of the time. Pre-orders, it's something I probably will cover maybe in a couple of weeks' time, because that whole culture is pretty fucking fascinating. So thank you very much for letting me know what you thought about last week's episode. You have already just seen what I thought about this week's episode because I created the fucking thing about sports and eSports and mind fuck. So I want to know what you thought about it. So please let me know in the comments under this YouTube video or the comments in the article on godisgeek.com, or you can tweet me. Because everything you heard me say and you saw me open my mouth and say, it's just my opinion and my opinion alone on this show and past shows and future shows. And it's always debatable.